sharing today and for all of you being willing once again to serve our country. Dr. Winslow, I want to return to, I think, a topic that was touched on briefly earlier, Section 702 of last year's National Defense Authorization Act, which transfers the direct oversight, control, and management of our military treatment facilities from the services to the Defense Health Agency. This committee has heard from the department that the department plans to implement a so-called component model to administer and manage those facilities by establishing intermediate medical commands that would be subject to two lines of authority, the Defense Health Agency and the services. I'm not sure, did we get a direct answer from you on whether or not you think that that approach to the requirements of Section 702 meets the committee's intent?
I support that, and again...
you support the not just 702 and the committee's intent, but the component model the department proposes?
Yes, I support that as well.
Okay. How substantial are the differences across the services between the kinds of medical treatment that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines need? Obviously, you face somewhat different medical challenges from, say, flying an advanced aircraft, as Senator Ernst has highlighted for us, to being a Army infantryman on the ground. Just how substantial are those differences across the services?
Yeah, so Senator Cotton, I'll be real honest, this is something that I'm going to have to get up to speed on a little bit more. My main knowledge is, is 35 years as an Air Force and Air National Guard officer, so a little bit more knowledge of the folks that wear the blue suits, though I have worked extensively, particularly deployed with the U.S. Army. Again, my concern is just, as I mentioned in my introductory remarks, that highly functioning healthcare systems, as a general rule, have they reduce variation. Some of this comes from the Toyota lean sort of philosophy. So my job will be really to implement this plan and to try to reduce variation across the services. And let's do evidence-based, cost-effective medicine, and remember our mission that we have. So,
yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I do think there's obviously got to be some allowances for the different tasks that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines take on, but I think the reduction of variation obviously does tend to control costs. I would assume that spouses, the husbands and wives of our service members and their children would face less variation across the services? Absolutely.
And again, I feel also very strongly that the better care that we give our dependents and small number of retirees, I'm not talking about veterans, but again, that actually increases your readiness as a medical force to care for the warfighter. So they're not mutually exclusive, they're complementary. So we'll do a much better job across the full spectrum of, say, those 6 components that I pointed out of our mission as the MHS.
Thank you. Obviously, there's no direct civilian analog for our military, but can you say on balance whether the same population of civilians, people who tend to be teenagers, 20s, early 30s, in the military versus civilians, on balance, are in better shape, better health in the military versus civilian life?
There's no question about that, sir. But one of the things, again, I'm digressing a little bit, that concerns me, and it's been pointed out in other testimony before this committee, is the 25-30% maybe of our high school students and even people in their early 20s meet physical qualifications for military service. I think that's a bigger issue. But our military is very fit, but we can do better. And again, medical readiness is a very important issue, and that's also a very high priority of Secretary Mattis.
Yeah, I agree. I think it helps that you have NCOs and junior officers that can tell soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines to go in for their checkup or else. I've noticed that teenagers and 20-somethings don't always act what may be in their best interest in these matters, but that leadership down to the team level does make a difference. What I'm driving at on all these questions is that I think this year's budget request was almost 9% for health and medical services coming from the administration. Obviously, that's a no-defect mission. If we don't provide for our service members and their families, and they won't be ready to go fight our wars. But given the general cost curves in healthcare in our society, if we don't stay on top of it, it's going to increase in the future. And I think the more money that we end up spending on healthcare and our services above what it's required to through leaning out operations, reducing variation, consolidating headquarters functions, it's going to be taking away from money that those very same soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marine need in the terms of more training, better equipment, more lethal weapons. So appreciate your willingness to take on the tough task. And once again, gentlemen, I appreciate everyone's willing to serve our country again. My time's expired.